Have you ever had kind of a really weird dream? That is what Romeo and Juliet Act 1, Scene 4 is all about. Remember, Romeo had shared with his cousin Benvolio that he's really sad that this girl, Rosaline, doesn't like him. He's heartbroken. It's unrequited love, meaning it's not returned. In a junior high setting, I imagine it's like a kid who has a crush on somebody else and they just don't feel the same way. Um, I think that's a universal experience. Sometimes, that happens. And students sometimes just don't know how to deal with that. They're just sad. They're just sad. And that's what Romeo is experiencing earlier in Act 1. Well, at scene 4, Romeo's friends and cousin Benvolio decided it's time to help Romeo get over it. Earlier, I believe it was in scene 3, I kind of blew over it. They got wind of a party that was happening. That was the version of like a quinceañera, where the Capulets are going to have this big party and share that their daughter is becoming a woman, and that she's available to date and marry and whatever. Yeah, just kind of weird. But either way, so Romeo's cousin Benvolio and Romeo's friends decided it's time to go get Romeo, to be distracted, to see that there are other girls out there, there are other beauties, as they say, and or like I like to say, other fish in the sea. So they go to this party and they're gonna break in. They're gonna crash the party. It's a masquerade ball, so it's costumes. They all wear different masks. And if I actually share, I usually do this with my students where we look at the pictures from our textbook because they're kind of funny. There's a pretty good picture of the masquerade. Well, we'll just have to go with this. Here is Romeo with his kind of awkward. Oh boy, he's got like a little mask. This is from one of the versions of the text. Anyway, Romeo, or one of the versions of the movie. Romeo is he's got a mask, and they're headed to this party, the ball, and they're going in undercover. They're sneaking in. They're breaking in. But along the way, one of the friends, basically Romeo's best friend, his name is Mercutio. And again, if you don't remember, if you haven't looked at it, you got to look at my chart I provided that basically explains all of the Capulets and who their family is, and all the Montagues, and who aligns with who. And that really helps. It helps keep everybody straight. So Romeo, his cousin Benvolio, Mercutio, and a bunch of other like no-name people, they are off to this party. But along the way, Romeo says something about, "Hey, I feel like tonight's kind of important. Something's going to happen." And Mercutio says, "Well, hey, guess what? Something important happens every night." And Romeo's like, "What? What are you talking about, Mercutio? You crazy?" Uh, and by the way, Mercutio, his name, it's kind of like how in the Harry Potter books, the names all have significance. Mercutio is a variant of Mercury. Mercury, the element, is volatile. It's liquid metal basically, and Mercutio is kind of crazy. Um, Mercury is also poisonous. If gotten on the skin, it can kill a person. So Mercutio is this volatile kind of, I'd say probably in today's parlance, bipolar type of a character. He's up, he's down, he's happy, he's depressed. He's all over the place. And Romeo, I mean Romeo likes having a person like Mercutio around. They're friends, they get along. But sometimes a character like that is a foil. They they show, because that character is so unstable or all over the place. It kind of shows how like regular other characters are. For example, Benvolio is kind of our peacemaker. By the way, Benvolio is a variant of benevolent. Somebody who's a peaceful type, benevolent, looking after others. So Benvolio, Romeo, Mercutio, they're all heading to this party. And Mercutio's like, hey, listen, every night something important happens, and it is this fairy queen that sneaks into our brains to give us dreams. I know, it sounds crazy. Mercutio basically says that there's this little like, yeah, I guess that's the only way to really describe it. A fairy that's smaller than an agate's, just super itsy bitsy teeny, and goes up our noses and tickles our brain and gives us crazy dreams at night. Yeah, Shakespeare went there. So Mercutio goes on and he tells this whole story. And actually, while he's telling it, he is kind of losing it. This is one of those scenes that I love to show part of the video for, because Mercutio goes from very calm, he's kind of entertaining his friends, and he's just kind of there, kind of being silly, and then he goes super like rage, anger, and then he gets super depressed, all in the span of about 10 minutes. It's explosive. Mercutio he's unstable right now. Whatever's going on in his life is not good. But scene 4 goes on. You have these guys are headed to this party. It's a very short scene. It's in the text version that I have, it's only 2 pages. But it is very important. This is known as the Queen Mab speech by Mercutio. This is a scene that typically I have students memorize. I have them memorize the Queen Mab speech, and I also typically have students memorize the prologue. So, something to think about. You might want to spend a little time looking at those. It's just basically memorizing a poem, because that's kind of what they are. So I haven't made that a thing, but it's something that I typically do. And they're both powerful. They're both great things to memorize. Anyway, as the Queen Mab speech concludes, Romeo says, "Oh, Mercutio, calm down. You're just getting too worked up about things." And Mercutio finally calms down, and Romeo says something to the effect, Benvolio says, "This wind you talk of blows us from ourselves. Supper is done and we shall come too late. We're going to be late for the party that we're breaking into. They're going to know that we're not supposed to be there." And Romeo then says, "You know what? Actually, I don't think we're going to be too late. I think we're going to be too early, because tonight something bad's going to happen, or something's going to happen that will lead to bad things." Romeo is now talking about fate. Is it Romeo's fate that bad things will happen, or is it a consequence of choices? This really comes down to a question of destiny, or predetermination, or free will. Now, in our culture, we like to think of ourselves as the masters of our own fate. If you want to work hard, you can achieve great things in sport or academics or career. If you work hard, you can do great things. You go to college, and you get degrees, and the next thing you know, you are, on a pathway for something great. But then again, sometimes there's some destiny involved. There are things in your life that are predetermined or foreordained. And if I'm using some language that sounds familiar, that's because these are sometimes considered a religious idea or concept. Are you meant to do certain things because your higher power determined that for you? Or because you made certain choices along the way, which has led you to a certain place? These are huge concepts. And I'd love to talk about this some more. In this time period, Elizabethan times, there was this idea of the great chain of being, and certain things are meant to be. But Shakespeare says, you know what? Maybe destiny and choices are a little bit more intertwined. Some interesting ideas from scene 4. The boys end up going to the ball, and then that is where scene 5 hits, which I'm not even going to mention because we are going to talk about that on Monday. I hope you're enjoying the play. This is a powerful work of art, of fiction, and it's sometimes the language is a little tricky. I've been thinking about that. I have lots of vocabulary words I could supply to you. If you're having a hard time, the version that you've been given, you might want to seek out a different version online. Let me just show, just so you can kind of get a picture of this. In our textbook, in our textbook, we have tons of definitions along the side. And that is kind of how this textbook is. It gives us lots of definitions to help students know what's going on. I really like this version of the textbook, but obviously I can't give these out to everybody because I only have like 35 of them. And the school is trying to prevent students from having to come to campus, and so on and so on. Hope you're doing well. Stay safe. Enjoy your work. Make sure that you're doing your work. And then Monday, we're going to tackle scene 5. And then we're going to have a study guide to go with the whole first act. Have a great weekend, and we will see you guys on Monday.